Welcome back to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to Austin G and Trevor F. Thank you both for choosing to use my Tesla referral link, and congratulations on your new Tesla. With the new Tesla referral program, my link is active once again, so if you need one, I'll have mine in the description below. Let's kick things off today with a bit of comedy. Craig Irwin is all over the news, longtime Tesla analyst. He's been bearish on the company with a price target under $100 for quite some time. Plus, 5 months ago, he said this.
Come on, it's a non-starter. There are some really big things that need to happen between here and there. You know, the pitch back then was, hey, it's going to be an over-the-air software update for the entire Tesla fleet, and you'll be able to send your car out at night to go and make you money as a taxi. It's hyperbolic. It really, I think, is borderline reckless. I mean, actually completely reckless.
The same Craig Irwin bumped his Tesla price target from $85 up to $380, a 347% increase. And here's what he's saying now.
I think now he's got a new pool of buyers, conservatives that might not have looked at EVs quite as closely in the past, that allow an acceleration of demand in the core US market, right? So that means we're looking at positive estimate revisions, and I'm asking myself, where are the catalysts? Right? I don't see very many negative catalysts if estimates are going to positive revisions, and they're abundant positive catalysts. Things are going to look a lot like they did 11, 12, 13 years ago, where they can literally invent their own milestones and knock them down. All of these, I think, will play to the positive for Tesla, and I think this is something that can be sustained for a couple of years. It's not like it's going to happen over a quarter or two. So, you know, bias is now to the upside, not the downside. And market cap may be huge, right? 1.1, 1.2 trillion is a big company, but they're doing big things. The use of LiDAR is not long-term sustainable because of the cost out there. So, you know, the cyber taxi, yes, it's going to be rolling in the middle of next year, right? We're going to see incremental progress, and people are going to be able to have a tangible experience.
Right.
And that's what I think actually drives valuation in the stock, and that's what drives, you know, enthusiasm to actually own the stock.
I still think as an analyst, Craig Irwin is mostly a joke, but the fact that somebody like Craig, who has been a perma-bear, has now turned bullish on Tesla, there's certainly some signal in that change. Tesla's AI prowess is becoming more undeniable by the week. Tesla's 2024 holiday software update is going to start rolling out as soon as next week. It's confirmed you will be able to use your Apple Watch as your phone key, and you can view the battery charge, open the frunk, and turn on climate control, and potentially control some other features as well. I always have my Apple Watch on, and I'm hoping that this will eliminate those times when I walk up to my Tesla and try to open it and it does not automatically unlock because for whatever reason, sometimes it doesn't recognize my phone. You'll be able to save dash cam and Sentry mode clips directly to your cell phone. Auto shift on the stockless Model 3 can now automatically shift between drive and reverse to handle parking lot maneuvers and multi-point turns. Sirius XM will now be available for Model 3, Y, and the Cybertruck. And one I've been waiting for some time, you can now set a preferred battery charge level for when you arrive at your destination. With my travels over just the past few weeks, there were so many times when I wish I had this feature. I want to be at my destination with at least about 40% state of charge, significantly above the 20% threshold where Sentry mode will still work. It would be awesome if eventually you could set this for both supercharger locations and your end destination. That's because at supercharger locations, typically you'd want to arrive with a lower state of charge, whereas when you get to your destination, people may want a higher state of charge. Another quite useful feature, you'll be able to view the precipitation directly on the map to check the weather at your destination. And it looks like you may be able to scrub through different times to see how the radar changes at different hours. When in reverse, your vehicle will alert you if it detects a pedestrian or vehicle crossing behind you. An audible warning will also play if a cross-traffic object is detected. You'll be able to personalize your Cybertruck avatar in the UI with a custom wrap and license plate, but the word is eventually this feature will be coming to other Tesla vehicles as well. There are presets for this, but you'll also be able to upload your own designs. The rear camera feed for the Cybertruck is now bigger, and you can pinch to zoom room in or out. Tune-in radio is now much better and it's still free. You can now play games on the screen in the back seat of the Cybertruck. Santa mode is coming to the Cybertruck. You can schedule a light show from the Tesla app, and there will be 2 new light shows with this update. There's a new game, Boomerang Foo. The emissions prank has a new feature on Contact. The new seats control panel allows you to adjust the position of the unoccupied passenger seat, including second row seats. You can track maintenance items through the touchscreen. The rear screen now allows video playback controls in Drive. You can find nearby parking at your destination or at any point of interest. One we'll touch on more shortly, navigation will dynamically route around road closures. Vehicles without premium connectivity can now see traffic on their navigation route. And when navigating to a supercharger, when you get there, you'll be notified on the touchscreen of any stalls that are out of service. So, what do you think? Better or worse than your expectations? I'm sure many of you have seen the big news over the weekend. Tesla did start rolling out FSD version 13.2 to limited external customers. In case you forgot, at the end of October, Ashok did say that the Tesla team is looking to get to feature complete for unsupervised FSD with the version 13 series. This is literally and finally supposed to be the one. To touch on a few of the release notes, the first one with full res AI4 video inputs, I saw plenty of people saying that this is the end of the road for hardware 3. I disagree. The plan has been the newest FSD updates will start with AI4, and then in a few weeks or months time, Tesla will backport that version to be compatible with hardware 3. Now, in fairness, the trend is moving toward Tesla needing to upgrade hardware 3 vehicles eventually, but for now, as far as we know, Tesla is still going to do everything it can to bring the latest FSD upgrades to hardware 3 eventually. One of the biggest ones, in my opinion, the 5x training compute scaling enabled by Cortex, which is exactly the chart I made a few weeks back showing you the different FSD version releases and how it lines up with Tesla's compute capacity. So in reality, version 13, this red circle should be bumped over to the beginning of December, which would put us up here. Let's call it about 85,000 H100 equivalent GPUs that version 13 is going to be trained on. Well, version 12.5, which has been very good broadly for AI4 customers, was trained on less than 45,000 H100 equivalents. Now, if you're wondering where the 5x in compute capacity comes from, I believe they're referring to the first release of FSD version 12.1, which had about 15,000 H100 equivalents, which would roughly give us that 5x in compute capacity. Most importantly, after version 13 goes wide, hopefully over the next week or two, in the ensuing months, we should see very rapid progress thanks to this extra compute. AI Driver highlighted that the steering wheel jitter is mostly gone, which could be because of the reduced photon to control latency of about 2x. Everyone that thought FSD drove way too slow on city streets will be rejoicing because speed profiles are now available on city streets. Some others have been covered widely, but one I think people are sleeping on: the dynamic routing around road closures, which displays them along an affected route when they're detected by the fleet. Translation: this is where the vehicle-to-vehicle and fleet-wide communication comes into play. Think about all of the features that Waze has to offer will now be able, in theory, to come to Tesla vehicles. So this feature will be starting with road closures being communicated, but in time, likely hopefully other things like police detection, potholes, cars on the side of the road, all of those things would in theory be able to be communicated through the Tesla fleet. And here are the upcoming improvements. I'm not going to go through them as this has been covered quite extensively, but they're on the screen if you missed them. To check back in on the AI timeline, Tesla said unpark, park, and reverse in FSD along with version 13 would come in October. In actuality, we got it at the end of November, but still pretty good for Tesla. I'm sure many of you already saw this video from AI Driver where FSD was using reverse to get out of a dead-end situation. But I just wanted to highlight that Chuck Cook also had a video in a similar scenario where FSD would not go into reverse. And as Holmar said, who is usually the most bullish with new Tesla software releases, said FSD 13 is sick, but not quite ready to go wide, a few rough edges. He said there are some regressions like handling a gate, and sometimes it was throwing up the red hands alert, meaning you have to take over immediately. But Chuck Cook said, "I don't see any safety issues that would keep 13.2 from going wide. It's better than 12.5.6.3. Send it." And Chris from Dirty Tesla and his wife had a video where FSD actually backed into a parking spot right in front of GameStop, and it left them both speechless. This is the version where you just get in your car, plug in your destination, press this button on the UI, don't touch anything, and you're off. And Ashok said they are working on parking options, including garages. So with a future point release, your vehicle should be able to take you from wherever you're at to your destination and park, and then bring you back home all the way into your garage without touching anything except the start button. One of my biggest questions for parking outside of parking at my house will be if FSD will be able to interpret road signs for different parking rules. Yoon Tasai, an AI engineer at Tesla, said version 13 is probably one of the biggest rewrites in years from when they began the journey of photon count 4 years ago. John Krause asked if it was a bigger leap technically and experientially than version 11 to version 12, to which he said, "The first two, we deleted the image processing tuning that has nothing to do with information. The last 2 years simplified the control stack to make it more human-like. Finally, we can clean up what's left. Version 13 is like Raptor engine version 3. And we know what Elon likes to say about the third iteration of a product. That's really where you can hit the sweet spot. For my visual learners, here's that photo of the Raptor engines, so you could look at these like FSD version 11, version 12, and then here's version 13. So the takeaway to keep in mind here with FSD progress, it's not just about adding more and more data, more and more compute. We also have to keep in mind it's Tesla continually removing certain things that it no longer needs to continually make the software more efficient. Just keep that in mind for competitors. There's much more to the story than just having as much compute and data as you can get your hands on. Early drives with version 13 have been very promising, but I like to wait for the wider release to see how it performs over a wider geography. And naturally, with these releases, there's so much excitement, it can be pretty tough to discern what's actually going on and how much of an improvement it really is experientially. So personally, I think we need at least another few weeks after the wide release to really have an opinion on version 13. But I have to say, so far things are looking very promising, and it's pretty incredible to think that after all of these years, 2025 really is shaping up to be the year that Elon ends up being right about his FSD timeline. And the main Tesla account shared an interesting thought: your kids will probably never have to learn to drive. If you, like me, have had concerns about the lack of front bumper camera and seeing things on the road, there are now multiple clips out there of version 13 avoiding smaller objects in the road. Here's one more video of version 13 avoiding something in the road, this one from Dirty Tesla. I want you to think about things like your browsing history, your search queries, all of the personal information that you've shared, and all of your real-time location tracking data. Now, think about the fact that since 2017, internet service providers have been granted the right to sell all of that data to basically anyone. And worse, even if yours promises not to, they can still allow your data to be used, transferred, and monetized by third parties. Thankfully, you can prevent all of this from happening to you and your family with this limited time offer at an unbeatable holiday price with Surfshark VPN, the sponsor of this video. Surfshark encrypts all of your online activity and masks your real IP address so no one can track your activity. Features like camouflage mode and no borders mode allow you to access blocked sites and services even in countries with heavy restrictions. Surfshark will encrypt your online communication from surveillance and interception, and it allows you to unlock entirely new libraries of content around the world. Plus, Surfshark works on an unlimited number of devices, meaning you can protect your entire family with only one account. As mentioned, the holiday pricing right now is exceptional, so if you've been waiting, now is your time. You can head to surfshark.com/electrified for 4 extra months of Surfshark at pricing that you won't beat anywhere else. The link is below. Today, the U.S. Energy Department said it's planning to loan up to $7.54 billion to a joint venture between Stellantis and Samsung. This to build 2 battery plants in Indiana for EVs. This award still has to be finalized, but Stellantis said the first plant would open early 2025 and the second in 2027. In addition to these 2 facilities in Indiana, Stellantis would also build a gigafactory in Canada with LG. The same Stellantis where the CEO, Carlos Tavares, just unexpectedly resigned. There were increasingly different views between him and the board of directors. I don't know about you, but it doesn't seem wise to give over $7 billion to a company that has so many question marks about its future. And this loan proposal makes it even more ridiculous that so many people still think Elon and Tesla are the ones getting all of these government handouts. Just real quick on the Optimus video catching 2 balls, I want to make it clear because there's some confusion out there. This video was teleoperated. Julian Ibarz, a bot engineer, said I forgot to mention, but this is teleoperated. And Milan Kovacs also confirmed it was teleoperated. But this is the new hand and forearm that has 22 degrees of freedom, up from 11 previously. There's also 3 degrees of freedom on the wrist and forearm. Milan confirmed this new hand and forearm is the one where all of the actuation, how you actually move the fingers, has been moved to the forearm, which has increased the weight. And there's now an interesting challenge around having enough squishiness and compliance and a protective layer on the fingers and the palm without affecting tactile sensing too much. This video has been covered at length, but what I wanted to touch on was the teleoperation bit. There's still the narrative out there that if anything is teleoperated, that basically means it's a nothing burger and not that impressive. But as I've been saying over the past few weeks, that's just not an accurate narrative. Elon did say it's an easy move to connect AI vision with arm actuation to catch autonomously. It will be done next quarter. We're just testing the actuation and sensor system in the video. Thus, according to Elon, relatively speaking, it's actually not that hard to get Optimus to catch a ball autonomously. What's really impressive here is that Tesla's teleoperation latency is so good and so low that they can actually react and catch a ball in real time. So as I've said before, Tesla's end game obviously does not include teleoperation. However, that does not mean that teleoperation doesn't have a place in the real world, which means the better Tesla can be at that, it would just open up more opportunities if Tesla ever chose to take those paths. I won't get into that now, but just think about any use case where it may not be safe for a human to operate. A teleoperated Optimus could solve those problems. And most importantly, Milan said it gives us confidence we'll very soon be making all new bots with the new hands. I did want to touch on finally changing course when it comes to lease buyouts, as they're now offering this option for new leases, and it's also retroactive for current leases. I saw so many different opinions out there whether this was a great or a terrible signal for Tesla's robotaxi prospects. But the truth is, there are just many different ways you could interpret this. Sure, maybe it's bullish for Cybercab and production tooling is going well, so the leased fleet won't be needed for robotaxis early on. Or perhaps this is much more simple and it's just a demand lever that Tesla is testing out for Q4 sales. Or maybe it's bearish for autonomy because if robotaxis were right around the corner, Tesla might want to keep these vehicles for themselves to deploy on the network because the net present value of revenues would be higher with the vehicles owned by Tesla. However, it's also true that if those vehicles were bought out and owned by the customer, Tesla would still get a portion of revenues if the customer adds those vehicles to the robotaxi network. And in that scenario, Tesla doesn't have to deal with any of the maintenance or the overhead. I've also seen some people saying this is proof that Hardware 3 vehicles will never be capable of unsupervised FSD because, again, if they were, Tesla wouldn't do this. The problem with that line of thinking is Tesla has plenty of Hardware 4 vehicles out on lease right now as well. Tesla started rolling out Hardware 4 in some vehicles in Q1 of 2023. Then separately, from an EV adoption perspective, I think it's great great, as this gives customers a way to try an EV from Tesla and they still have the option to buy it if they so choose. Or maybe Tesla is getting ahead of the EV credits going away and Tesla wants customers to be able to eventually buy a Tesla through the leasing loophole. With this option, customers can still benefit from the EV tax credit even after it goes away. Honestly though, for me, I'm not reading too much into this one. This is something that customers have been asking Tesla for literally for years, so it could be as simple as Tesla just giving the customers what they want. And keep in mind, Tesla's lease program isn't that big to begin with. We're talking between 10 and 15,000 vehicles per quarter. I did see this online. I can't confirm if it's true, but the word might be that you can request a buyout quote of your Tesla lease from a lender at any time before your lease maturity date, which if true would mean you would not have to wait until the end of your lease to actually buy it out. And that obviously would have impacts on the ultimate financing, so it's nice to have that early option, again, if true. We've all been waiting patiently to hear Kathleen McCormick's decision about Elon's 2018 pay package. Well, today we got her decision, and she yet again, even after shareholders re-supported the vote, she decided to reject the package. She decided to stick with her original finding in January that the company's board was too much under the influence of Elon. I'll just come out and say it. Kathleen seems to be way too much under the influence of someone, and we need to figure out who that is. This has such a strong feeling of corruption written all over it. We spent almost a year going over all of the disclosures. Tesla hired people to put together that in-depth report that informed Tesla shareholders as thoroughly as one could about everything with regard to that pay package, and then we re-voted and overwhelmingly had majority shareholder support. So effectively what Kathleen is saying with this decision is that I see that, but I don't really care. I still think you're all wrong. Now, before I go off too much on this, the main Tesla account on X already said the court's decision is wrong and we're going to appeal. So as expected, this will be going to the Delaware Supreme Court, which means we're back to the waiting game. But if there's a silver lining here, I did some digging, and for the Delaware courts, I found that the Delaware Supreme Court is known for being the most prompt appellate court in the nation. The court has established goals for timely resolution of its docket. Last year, the court's appeals were decided an average of 29.7 days from the date of submission to the date of final decision. That's obviously just an average, but hopefully sometime in the next few months we can get a final decision. Further, Kathleen said even if a stockholder vote could have a ratifying effect, it could not do so here. And here's her reasoning for saying that. She said, "Were the court to condone the practice of allowing defeated parties to create new facts for the purpose of revising judgments, lawsuits would become interminable," meaning they would last a really long time, effectively without an end. But this idea of new facts is ridiculous the way I see it. None of them were new. They were the same facts that existed the first time around. But again, what Kathleen is effectively saying here is that she really doesn't care about the facts, whether they're new or old. She's just worried about these lawsuits not taking too long. So forget about justice or actually getting to the bottom of things, getting to the truth. We just need to wrap this up and get this over with. And she also approved a $345 million attorney fee award for the lawyers that sued to void the plan. I really don't see any world where this decision does not lead to a continued exodus of businesses and corporations from Delaware. As Tesla said, if this doesn't get overturned on appeal, that means that judges and plaintiffs' lawyers run Delaware companies rather than their rightful owners, the shareholders. Activist judges, the lawfare, whatever you want to call it, it all needs to stop yesterday. I have to say, I will be shocked if Tesla somehow loses this appeal at the Supreme Court. Best case scenario, Tesla wins this appeal in the next few weeks, Elon gets his pay package reinstated, and we can finally put this in the past and move on. Worst case scenario, this appeal drags out for 6+ months and ultimately gets rejected yet again, which would mean Tesla has to figure out a new way to compensate Elon, and no matter how they figure it, it's going to be much more expensive for Tesla and Tesla shareholders. So, yet again, we'll wait and see. Briefly, the new Jaguar design inspirations apparently leaked, and this is what we're working with. All I'll say is, it's not my cup of tea. If you take a look around, the cracks are starting to show at many of these legacy OEMs. We talked about many problems with Stellantis. We now have 2 people from Nissan saying that they have 12 to 14 months left. 2 unnamed Nissan executives said the company has 12 to 14 months to survive, which makes it less surprising that Nissan's CFO has decided to step down. It's not clear whether he's being demoted or leaving the company. Tesla stock closed the day at $357.09, up 3.46%, while the Nasdaq was up 0.97%. The volume was 22% lower than the average volume the past 30 days. Don't forget, check out Surfshark linked below. Elon has recommended VPNs in the past, as we've shared, and Elon did chime in saying absolute corruption about the Kathleen McCormick decision. Just don't forget there can be corruption with your internet service providers as well. Thank you all for your patience over the last 2 weeks, but I'm finally back home and it's so good to be back. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.